Hi, my name is Jonas Holst, and thank you for listening to my presentation, which I have called Keeping the Ball in Play Without Keeping It, Teaching and Understanding the Flow of Play in Net and Ball Games. So I will start with a short introduction, and after that I will make a few theoretical observations of the advantages of taking the approach which I will offer in my presentation. And then finally, I will also present a simplified version or an example of how I understand we can explore the flow of play and get familiar with the flow of play in a game of volleyball. So let's get started. Play is the lifeblood of any game-based approach within physical activity and education. If we take away the play element or the dynamics which play generates, we are left with an empty game form without any life. In a paper on rethinking teaching games for understanding, Len Almond has highlighted the shape and flow of the game as key to understanding games. And Joy Butler has argued that without the play element, activity becomes routine, predictable, and lacking in possibilities. So these are kind of part of my theoretical background to present some theoretical observations and also one practical example of what I consider to be very important, namely to get a feel for the flow of play. If Almond and Butler are right, then taking our starting point in the dynamic flow of play when we teach physical activity through a game-based approach may open up new possibilities for the practitioners, the players themselves, promoting creativity, fostering sustained attention and motivation to keep playing. Yet considering that play is by nature somewhat uncontrollable and unpredictable, at least in its free and frolic forms, we will need well-designed physical activities and exercises in order to reach the learning outcome mentioned and make the most of moving in and out of ongoing gameplay. I'll argue that there is a series of net and ball games which are particularly appropriate for facilitating a smooth way into the flow of play. These games are, a couple of examples, volleyball, badminton, tennis, table tennis, and paddle tennis, which share, despite the differences between them, a basic game dynamics characterized by keeping the ball in play without keeping it. These games are, however, rightly considered to be difficult to introduce into school curricula because of the required technical skill and coordinated movement needed to play and participate in them. This is one more reason why we need to think about how to make adaptations and shape these games so that all participants can be engaged in them, sharing, learning, and enjoying themselves in fair, diverse, and inclusive ways. So now I will make a couple of three theoretical observations about what I consider to be the advantages of taking this illusory approach to start in a game context and trying to let the students or the players get a feel for the flow of play. So first of all, by taking our starting point in play, we find ourselves submerged in a game context, on the inside of what I would like to call the illusory sphere. That is, we look for teaching and learning opportunities while being in play. The Dutch cultural historian Johan Huizinga famously spoke about the tendency of play to absorb its players into a magic circle, what I prefer to call the illusory sphere, inside which the participants learn by doing and by being exposed to chances which they take or leave behind in play. To play means to be drawn to and drawn into this illusory sphere, whose dynamic nature has a captivating effect on players, who move back and forth, in and out, without looking towards any other goal than to keep up with this alternating, ongoing movement. The meaning of play is inherent in the play motion itself, which renews itself over and over again. So this is my first observation about how we can make the most of the flow of play in our teaching of games. The other observation which I would like to make is that, psychologically speaking, if we can somehow let this self-renewing effect of play come to the fore when we teach physical activity, I think it holds a great learning potential, not only for children and young people who are more prone to play, but for all ages. Players may become more motivated by taking part in play. And game-wise, players learn through the exploration of opportunities and openings, and by experimenting with sensations and sharing space with others in the flit and flutter of play. Feeling the flow of play while being caught up in its dynamics may cause a sensation of delight, which Scott Kretschmar has defined as the result of an effortless, harmonious movement in and out, carrying body and breathing in sync. And so my final and third and final observation about what I will then in the end give one example of, namely keeping the ball in play without keeping it. What is it that is so unique about this dynamics? Well, it is that in these games which I mentioned before, for instance, volleyball or tennis or badminton, the whole point of playing these games is really to keep the ball in play. This may seem to be very basic, but when you watch even professional players, not only when they warm up and train, but even in the matches, you see really the one who wins will be the one who is able to keep the ball in play. So this basic dynamics is so fundamental, I would say, that it makes a lot of sense, and it is very relevant to start the session of physical education by something so basic. So I think it animates the players to follow, feel, and anticipate the flow of the ball, and coordinate and time their movement in accordance with its trajectory, so as to keep playing. This is the what I would say is the point of designing a very basic exercise. This is obviously work in progress for me, and I mean it is something that I think we all probably include in our daily practice. But then again, sometimes we also jump into the next steps, evaluating, teaching how to make tactical decisions. Technically, we want to improve our players, but this is really very basic about just getting a feel for the flow of the play and staying in that movement back and forth and moving in and out without thinking about anything else than just keeping the ball in play. So let me give a really very basic, simplified example of how I see this taking place in a game of volleyball. Obviously very modified, where we would exaggerate the idea of just keeping the ball in play. Okay, so the exercise could be the following. So either we would invite the students to form two lines, or either in pairs. They could also play in pairs. We would ask them to engage in the collaborative effort of keeping the volleyball in the air by using the technique setting a volleyball. This is, I would consider it, even although volleyball may be technically quite demanding, this would still be the best way of getting a feel for the ball and the movement, I believe. I cannot go further into this, but I think it would be relatively easy to teach our students this basic technique in volleyball, so that they can sometimes almost catch the ball and send it over to their partner. So this is the basic idea. Modifications, I would leave out the nets and also tell the players that they should not catch the ball actually with their hands, but the technique should still be not only with the fingers, setting the ball with the fingertips, but really kind of feeling the ball before sending it over to their partner. I would also modify, obviously, the court should not even be a court, just really narrow the court, or in two lines they can just try to keep the ball in play. And this is obviously what we will focus on in the exercise. Alternatives, because they may, after 5, 6, 7 minutes, this may be boring to some of the more advanced players. We could also let them form a circle and let one of the players stay in the center, and this would then be the one who sets the volleyball to the other players in the circle. So the one in the circle, the one in the middle, would then keep receiving the ball from the players out in the circle and sending it back. This is very often also quite entertaining, and the part of delight usually manifests itself immediately, just changing a little bit the dynamics of the flow of play here. Suggestions: I would then avoid freezing the game at any point, just letting the players really get a feeling for how the play flows, and how volleyball is really about keeping this flow of the play or the ball moving. And after this exercise, invite the players to verbalize their experiences. How did they feel? Did they make any improvements, adjustments to kind of improve the technique, feeling the ball, even observing where the other players are? Although there is no court and no net, it's still interesting to also improve the movement, the coordination, and the timing. Okay, thank you very much for listening.